everybody. This is day 6 of 30 Days of Lives, and this is my worst lighting ever. Like, ever, ever, ever. Which is saying something because I'm still figuring out the whole lighting thing. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about the massive effect that you're having on people and you don't even realize it. So, what I'm talking about, like a lot of times when we're posting and we're engaging and we're doing all this stuff, especially in the beginning, and we're trying to build up our social media presence, it can feel like nobody's paying attention and it can get really frustrating. And it's very easy to want to just give up, and be like, nobody's engaging. No, nobody's ever going to buy from me. Like, this is horrible, yada, yada. But the thing is like, people are watching, even if they're not commenting, even if they're not liking, even if they're not engaging. And a funny thing is that it's usually not the people who are most engaged on your content that buy. For some reason, it's like usually people that are kind of lurking. Yeah, I don't know why that is, but I wanted to talk about something that happened to me. This was not on social media, but just a way that someone inspired me just by being themselves. So this is a limo story. This is a chauffeur story. This is an inspirational story and a getting to know Heather, all in one. So if you follow me, then you've probably heard me tell stories about how I am not an overnight success. I am honestly, well, the story I'm going to tell tonight is one of the reasons why I didn't give up or I didn't stay giving up, because I gave up actually several times. And so for anybody that, if you don't know, I started coaching about 10 years ago, and then I went through the motions. I had a podcast. I was a sex and romance coach and had a podcast for about 4 years off and on. And couldn't figure out how to make it convert, and then started taking business courses, and really just couldn't get it going. Just could not figure out a way of selling and marketing that felt good, and had a lot of mindset stuff and everything that I finally started addressing this year and have started having some success, which is awesome. But this, I guess it was about 11 months ago now. It was like October of 2019. I had walked away from the coaching industry. I thought for the last time, and I was working as a chauffeur. And I had spent a lot of money to become an independent chauffeur. Like, I had shelled out $30,000 that I did not have. Of course, I had a loan for this beautiful Cadillac, and I was trying to figure out something to do that I would be, I'd have my freedom and I could work for myself and I could make really good money and everything. And I knew a chauffeur, and he made really great money. And so I was like, okay, let me go try this. So I, had walked away from coaching, and I was starting to feel like, okay, this chauffeur thing is not all it's cracked up to be, because the hours are ridiculous. Like, I posted something the other day where I found an old alarm on my iPad where I had to get up at like 3:30 in the morning one morning, and it was it's crazy. Like, it was so much more work than I thought it was going to be. So at any rate, I could have made it work if I needed to make it work, but I started thinking. October, last year, I was like, wait a minute, like, this is not fulfilling. Coaching is so fulfilling. I just hate the sales and marketing part, and I suck at it, you know. And but I was like, there's a lot of things I really hate about this limo thing. So I, started thinking. I was like, I probably need to go give coaching another try, right? And one evening, I was waiting at the airport, and um, when you're a chauffeur, you have the little cards. Usually people want you to have the placard, up to say like who you're meeting. Sometimes they don't. People are weird. But pro tip: you never want to put the full name of somebody on that board that you have at the airport, because assholes will come up and claim that they're your ride and get you to take them somewhere for free, right? And so I would always, especially as a woman, like, I was like, I'm not getting in the car with somebody I really don't know. I have no idea who they are, and nobody knows who I am, who I'm with, and what's going on. Okay, so I would always put the first initial of the person and then their full, last name. So I'm standing around, I'm waiting for this guy. And there was something about his name that kind of sounded familiar, but I had stopped Googling people because if it was going to be somebody famous, like I would get really nervous. I would get kind of freaked out. So I hope you guys can hear me. You should be able to hear me. Hi. Hello. I can't see who you are, but thanks for watching and saying hello. Because I'm on StreamYard. So at any rate, so I kind of thought the guy sounded familiar, but I was like, I'm not going to look him up, whatever. So after a while, this guy comes up and he's like, hey, you're with me. And he's this big, tall dude, big, tall white guy. And I was like, okay, he's probably like in his 40s, but he looks like he used to play basketball. Like he was built like a very, obviously very athletic. And he was like wearing like gym clothes, like just totally laid back. Not the idea of the person that takes a limo. So I started walking away with him, and I was like, okay, cool, hi, how was your flight? Good to meet you, yada yada. Can you please confirm your first name? And he looked at me, and he was like, Jesse. And I was like, okay, this guy's famous. He's used to people recognizing him, and he's kind of like poking fun at me that I don't recognize him. But he wasn't like a total jackass about it. But he was like, and what's your name? And I was like, I'm Heather. Hi, yada yada. And so I take him home, and he lives in like this super nice area of town, super nice house. And we pull up to the place, and there's like two Range Rovers parked at it, and like another like high end car. And I was just like, okay, but like I think like the maid or some part of the household staff was coming out at the same time he was coming home. And one of the things that struck me is that like he was talking to them like they were a part of the family. So I was like, okay, like this guy, he's a rich guy, but he's nice, like he's respectful of his staff. And I was like, okay, that's cool. So as I'm pulling out of the driveway, I like pull up Google, and I was like, who is Jesse Itzler? And it comes back that he is part owner of the Atlanta Hawks, which is our basketball team. And he is also married to Sarah Blakely, who started Spanx. And the thing that really caught my eye about him, though, is that he's a motivational speaker, and he's actually written a couple of books. If you guys know who David Goggins is, he is this super, super intense dude that was I want to say Navy SEAL or like some of the Marines. Like he's just like one of the elite like fighting forces, and he's just like all about over like mindset, overcoming mind over body, pushing yourself to like crazy lengths and everything. And one of the books that Jesse wrote, he sought out David Goggins because they both do these ultra marathons. So they run like 100 miles at a time. Regular marathon is like 26.2 or 3 miles. I wouldn't know because I've never run one. But they run these ultra marathons. So he had gotten together with them and was like, hey, let's do some running together. And then he ended up inviting David to come, I think, come live with him in his house. He did not talk to his wife about this. He was like, come live with me in my house. I feel like I'm not pushing myself hard enough, and I need somebody who's just going to like push me to the limit. And I think he came to stay, like David moved in with Jesse and his wife, Sarah, for like 30 days and just like pushed him to the limit. Like they did like a 10-mile run in a blizzard. They did something where they like ran 4 miles every 4 hours or some shit, like for 24 hours straight. Like he just really pushed him, and so Jesse wrote a book about it. And he also wrote a book. There was a different time. I don't know what the sequence of this, because honestly, I haven't gotten the books. I kind of suck. But I've had other things to do. Okay, I don't suck. But he decided that he wanted to really delve into spirituality more. And so instead of doing, what a normal person would do is, like go find a meditation center, do some yoga, like read some spiritual books, he found a monastery to go stay at for like 2 weeks and like I think had a vow of silence and like no technology, nothing for like 2 weeks. And he wrote a book about it. So, really, really cool, really amazing guy. And I was like, oh, okay, like that's cool. And it was almost good that I didn't know all that stuff about him, because as the limo driver, you're not really supposed to talk to people. And I really would have wanted to talk to him. And so I was just like, okay, well, that's kind of cool. So I looked up some of his podcast appearances and everything, and I was just kind of like geeking out to him. I was like, oh my God, like this guy is so inspiring. And then a couple weeks later, um, I was at a private airport and I was waiting for this other dude. And at a private airport, it's much more likely to be like a CEO, or you can get like C-suite executives definitely at the airport. But if it's a private airport, like it's somebody that's like a big deal. And I did look up this guy, and it was another ultra runner and a motivational speaker, and I was like, okay, like, all right, well, we'll go see what it's about. And so I go and I pick up the guy, and the plane that he comes on was, I don't think it's Jesse Itzler's plane, but maybe it is. But he had like taken a bunch of his friends up to like somewhere in northeast America. I'm kind of like, I'm having a weird week, so I'm not as succinct and like as I need to be. But at any rate, it was somewhere like up north, like New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, something like that. And they had done this really extreme mountain climbing. I want to say a race, and it was something like where you were like out there for like 36 hours straight, like no sleep, just like they're all about the extreme endurance sports. And he had just, gotten a bunch of friends together and gone up there and did it. And the guy that I was going to be, taking home, or taking to his house, not to my home, he was somebody that Jesse had met through ultra running, and like they just started hanging out, and he and Jesse had been like, hey dude, I'm doing this thing, do you want to come with? And Jesse was paying for the limo to take this guy home, and the guy lives like hour and a half, 2 hours outside of Atlanta, so it was an expensive fucking trip, But he's just like that apparently. Like if he likes you, if he vibes with you, you're just kind of like in. So I'm standing there out on the tarmac, like, freaking movie, and there's all these people that I probably should recognize and know, because they're probably like really big deal, at least in the Atlanta area. And I have no idea who I'm looking out except for, Jesse. And but I can see him, but I'm not supposed to speak to him or anything, but by then I've listened to a bunch of his interviews, and I'm just like, wow, this guy's really cool. Like, this really feels like a sign to me that I need to get back into coaching, that I need to go, back. It's like, what are the odds that I had this personal development guy in my car? So I'm standing around and I'm waiting, and they're all like taking pictures and, saying goodbye and, talking about their trip and everything. And he comes over and actually, well, he waved at me. He recognized me and he waved at me, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna wave back. And then he came over and actually brought the luggage for his friend who he was paying for the car for. He actually put it in the trunk, and I mean, it's heavy stuff. I mean, obviously he's in great shape, and it would have been really difficult for me to do it. So it was really, really sweet that he did it. And when he came over, I took the opportunity. I was like, Mr. Itzler, I just wanted to let you know that I found out who you are. And you really inspire me. And he was like, oh, that's great. And he was just like the coolest guy. So just by him being himself, he didn't try to sell me a book or a seminar or, talk to me and like directly try to inspire me. He was just being himself, and that's kind of an extreme example, because I'm talking about somebody who's already published and everything. But it wasn't just his books. It was like the way I could see the way he was interacting with people, and the fact that he's just like, okay, let's go do this crazy extreme sport for the weekend, and hey, let's all get on a plane, and like instead of flying Delta, let's get on a private plane and like everybody fly up together, and I'm like, wow, like that's the kind of person I want to be. I want to have like that level of affluence and influence that I can do that. I can like just get a group of friends together and go off on this adventure and be a person who makes shit tons of money and is still like humble enough to help somebody else with their bags, you know. So he really inspired me a lot, and it was one of the kind of deciding factors. Like I said, I was leaning back toward going back and looking at my coaching business and being like, okay, like I got to figure this shit out. Like I'm never going to be happy ever unless I get this coaching business off the ground. You know, it's like, this is what I'm meant to do. I'm fucking fantastic at it. You know, I just have to get over the sales and marketing thing. So, you know, I already had that going through my head, but meeting him and then running into him again, like a couple weeks later, was really like, okay, like, God, universe, all right, I get the sign. Like, it's time for me to get serious. And so then I had reconstruction surgery, my first reconstruction surgery for breast cancer, like in November, and like took forever to heal and yada yada. But as soon as I was feeling better, like in late January last year, was when I actually got my one-to-one coach and got really serious about creating a way of selling and marketing that felt good, so that I could actually get out and sell. So, like I said, I just wanted to. I'm really big on normalizing what a normal entrepreneur journey looks like, for one thing. And you know, we see all these overnight successes, and sometimes that happens and it's really inspiring when it does. But I like to tell people, like, it took me 9 years to really get my stuff going, so that you're not sitting there and feeling bad about yourself and thinking, well, if I didn't make, you know, $100,000 in my first year, then maybe I'm not meant to be a coach. You know, never think anything like that, because most people do not get those types of results, no matter what you hear in the postings and the testimonials and the ads and the yada yada yada. Like, it happens, but just because it doesn't happen for you doesn't mean that you're not meant to do this, right? So I'm always telling my story to like normalize that, and also, you know, just to remind you that, especially as you're getting going, your social media presence, you may not be getting a lot of engagement. You know, it may look like nobody's watching, but I guarantee somebody's watching. There's somebody right now. I am actually interacting on her stuff because I know how much it means to people. Like, even if you just got a second, you know, somebody's inspiring you, like, reach out to them. That may be the difference between them like giving up that day or giving up for good. You know, just getting one comment, you know, and telling them like, hey, you inspire me, or, you know, I really love your post, or I'm really enjoying, you know, it doesn't even have to be every day. Like, reach out to people and just be like, hey, you know, I'm really enjoying your post. But I just reached out to somebody today, and she's posting her daily workouts, you know, and she's not, I don't think she's even in fitness, but she's definitely not like, you know, she's not the stereotypical social media fitness influencer, you know, with the really snazzy photos and everything. She's just, you know, somebody that's taking care of her health. But I see her posting every day, and I'm on a similar journey, you know, where I'm getting back into exercising and everything. And so I dropped her a note, and I'm like, this is really inspiring to me, you know, thanks. So you never know. You never know who you're inspiring just by being you. So, you know, keep posting, keep at it. You know, find people that inspire you. Notice when people who inspire you show up, you know, because it may be the universe giving you like a little nudge and a reminder, like, hey, don't quit. And mostly don't quit, because God, if I had gotten a one-to-one coach and gotten this shit going, like, I could have been, you know, in a totally different place right now with my coaching. I could be impacting so many more lives. My life would be really different, you know. So don't quit, keep going. Support people on social media, you know, even if you're not ever planning on buying from them. Like, you know, give them a heart, give them a like. You know, tell them hi, tell them they inspire you, tell them they're doing a good job. Yeah, because it's good. It's good for us to support each other. I am going to. I don't know. I was going to do. I'm not going to turn off and do another live. So that's kind of the end of that topic. Uh, my next topic is just kind of a funny one. So I have been, I've done a couple of lives this week where I talked about my life when I was working as an escort. And my life is kind of imploding at the moment. My dad's caretaker, and he's having an issue. I'm afraid that there's some psychological, like maybe dementia stuff going on, which is really sad. And I've got to talk to his doctors tomorrow and see about getting him tested. But I had to leave the house for a few days. So I was staying with some friends. And then, they wanted their space, which, like totally respected. And so I had to get a hotel. And so I've been telling these, no, they're not dumb. I've been telling these wild stories from my escorting career, and so stuff has been coming back that I haven't thought about in a while. And if you're just joining, I kind of skip topics. I did the whole thing about, you're inspiring people even if you don't know it. And now I'm just kind of rambling about my life and talking about why I'm in this hotel, and a funny story, a couple funny stories involving hotel rooms from my escorting days. So. So I end up in this hotel, and like, for one thing, well, I don't know. I'll give you like a little tour. It's not like a fancy place, but I go in, and like, first thing I see that there's this. So that lock on the door is right here. That indicates that this is an adjoining room door. So if there's a door on the other side, and if somebody else in that room wanted to open it when we're both opening it, it'd be like a suite, right? And those were the bane of my existence when I was working as an escort, because cops always used adjoining rooms, and they would bust you in one room, and they would have like the cavalry waiting next door, because obviously you need 6 FICE officers to arrest one small female, at any rate. So I walked in and I looked at that. But, thinking about my old escorting stories, I was going blank for a second, and now more stuff, started coming back to me. And one of the most wild things that happened was at a Best Western, and this is a Best Western. It wasn't this particular Best Western, but it was a Best Western. So I went to see this guy, and he opens the door, and like, he's got a shaved head and he's covered in tattoos, and he's obviously like in the gym, like he's this buff white guy. And but like, somehow he wasn't scary. Like, he wasn't scary, even though he was shaved head, tattoos, he was a big buff guy. And he was really high, honestly. He had been doing like a lot of coke, but he was super nice, and he kept me for a couple hours, and whatever. And then I left, and the next morning I get a phone call from the police, and they're like, look, we know you were in this hotel room with this person last night. We need you to come in and talk to us. And I was like, I do. And so I was like, okay. I was like, I will come in and talk to you, but I have to speak to my lawyer first. Because I had really good mentorship when I was an escort. Well, I don't know. Some parts of it were good, and some parts of it were fucking ridiculous. But that's a story for another time. Mentors can be a really mixed bag. But at any rate, I was trained, like, you do not talk to the police without a lawyer present. You just don't. And it is really good advice. So I kept trying to get in touch with my lawyer, and I could not get in touch with them. And the police kept calling me, and I'm like, they wouldn't tell me what it was about at first. And then they're like, you have to come down like right now, because I mean, there's there could be somebody trapped in a trunk somewhere, and we can't get to them because you're not coming to talk to us. And I'm like, what the fuck happened? And like, over the course of the day of me like trying to get in touch with my lawyer and the police calling me over and over again, it comes out that this guy had robbed a bank a couple hours south of Atlanta, in Macon, Georgia, and then drove to Atlanta. And I don't know what he did for a few hours, but he, gets in his hotel room, and he sees me. And then sometime after I left, like, I think the timeline was like within like 15 minutes or 30 minutes after I left, he shot up the hotel room with a handgun, and then he jumped off the balcony. And I was like, what the fuck? So finally, I get in touch with my lawyer, and I go, down to his office. And the first time I had gone to see him was because I was getting divorced from my gay husband, which is a whole nother story. But suffice it to say, one of my friends was in the military. It was during Don't Ask, Don't Tell. He didn't want to get kicked out of the military, and I needed health insurance, so we got married. And after 13 years, we decided it was time to get a divorce. So that's how that lawyer had met me. And so I go in, and he's like, okay, so what's going on? And I'm like, well, went to see this guy last night as a client, and apparently he shot up the hotel room, and, did all this, crap. And like, if you're just joining, I've moved on from the inspirational topic, and now I'm telling a crazy escorting story about this guy who flipped out after I went to see him. So, I'm telling my lawyer, I'm like, yeah, he shot up the room, and apparently he jumped off the balcony. And my lawyer looks at me, and he was like, Heather, nobody can ever say that you don't have interesting problems. And I just looked at him, and I was like, fuck you, Scott, just help me. And so we're going down to talk to the police. And it's like by the end, it's like kind of the end of the day, and like they were like strangely less intense about it by the time we got there. And I don't know for sure, but I think the guy may have died in that time. I'm not sure, but they took us in. Well, first off, the lawyer's like, "Well, do you want to ride with me, or do you want to take separate cars?" And he's like, he was still smoking at the time. I think he's quit since, and I had just quit like I don't know, like pretty recently. And so I was still like having a lot of cravings and everything. And I was like, I want to ride with you so that I get the secondhand smoke. And he was like, okay. So we go down and we're talking to the police. And like I said, they had chilled out considerably when we got there. And they're asking me questions and they're like, well, what was he wearing when you got there? And was one of the questions I asked. And I was like, oh, well, he's wearing like long, kind of workout shorts and like, this kind of shirt. I don't remember what it was now. And they're like, okay. And they asked me all these questions, yada, 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 yada. And they're like, what was he wearing when you left? And I was like, he was wearing the same thing. So at this point, we pieced together, I get like more of the full story. So he robbed a bank, but he robbed it with a note. And in light of everything else, I think he was trying to get killed, like robbing the bank. I think he was like very, very depressed. And he lived, and he only got like $3,000. And then he came up to Atlanta and booked me for 2 hours. I go to see him. I'm there for 2 hours. He's a total gentleman. He was really high, but he was like super nice, and like wasn't weird, wasn't dangerous to me. He didn't act dangerous to me at all. And then after I left, got a handgun and just shot up the room, and then he jumped off of the balcony. He was 5 floors up, and it was concrete like asphalt parking lot that he jumped into. So he jumps off the balcony and he lives. Not only does he live, when that doesn't kill him, he runs to the nearby freeway. And I mean, this is like Highway 75, 85. Actually, I think it's 75 there. Yeah. So he runs out on Highway 75, which is like massive, like 6-lane highway with like lots of traffic, lots of big trucks, all kinds of crazy shit. And apparently, he was in the hospital. Like he was hospitalized. And like I said, I think he probably died because they weren't. It's like they were going through the motions, asking me questions, but they weren't that intense about it. So yeah, they were. But I guess they were trying to see if he had told me where he had put. I don't know if he had taken anybody hot. I don't know. The whole thing was so fucking weird. But they let me leave. I didn't get charged with anything. But I felt like it scared the crap out of me. It really like scared the crap out of me. Of course, it didn't stop me from escorting, but it did scare the crap out of me. And for those of you wondering if you know anything about my timeline, I was sober by this point. Like, this is like a story from my 20s when I was like high as hell and really stupid. This was just like my 30s when I was sober as hell, but still apparently a little stupid. But yeah, so being in this is a nicer Best Western than the one that I was in, but being back in a Best Western reminded me of that story. So I thought I would tell you guys my crazy Best Western bank robber story. Yeah, I think I'm gonna chill out for the rest of the night. But thanks for everybody watching live. Thanks for everybody watching the replay. Let me know if you have the questions, comments, and concerns other than the bad lighting, because there's nothing I can do about that. All right, thanks everybody.